Bert's phone vibrated on the nightstand, a credit alert piercing the quiet of a suburban bedroom. New inquiry. $750,000 mortgage. His heart stopped, the numbers glaring in the dark. He hadn't applied for anything. Across the bed, his wife, Elise, slept soundly, her breathing soft, her secrets hidden beneath a smile he thought he knew. The truth, when it came, would shatter everything. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of Bert and Elise's modest ranch house in the quiet town of Cedar Hollow, painting stripes of gold across the hardwood floor. Bert stood at the kitchen counter, grinding coffee beans, the familiar hum tethered to his routine. At 36, he was a man of understated intelligence, his wiry frame draped in a flannel shirt, his brown eyes sharp behind glasses, his sandy hair neatly combed. A data analyst for a local insurance firm, Bert thrived on patterns, finding comfort in numbers and logic. But lately, the patterns of his life, his marriage, his home, fell off like a spreadsheet with a hidden error. The kitchen smelled of toast and brewing coffee, a ritual Bert cherished. Elise sat at the table, her blonde hair pulled into a loose ponytail, her phone glowing as she scrolled through emails. At 34, she was vibrant, a marketing consultant whose energy had drawn Bert a decade ago. Their marriage, built on late-night talks and shared hikes, had been a steady orbit, or so he believed. They bought this house 5 years ago, a fixer-upper they'd painted and patched together, dreaming of a future with kids, a garden, a life rooted in Cedar Hollow. But the past year had brought subtle shifts: Elise's late nights, her distracted glances, her quick excuses about client dinners. Bert poured coffee, sliding a mug to Elise. "Rough week?" he asked, his voice gentle, probing. Her smile was quick, almost rehearsed. "Just busy. Big campaign coming up." She didn't meet his eyes, her fingers tapping the phone, and Bert's chest tightened, a flicker of unease he couldn't name. He sipped his coffee, the bitterness grounding him, and pushed the feeling aside. Elise was his partner, the woman who'd laughed with him over burnt pancakes, who'd kissed him under the stars. If something was wrong, she'd tell him. Trust was their foundation, wasn't it? The strange credit alert from last night lingered, though a splinter in his mind. Bert had checked his email at 2 a.m., unable to sleep, and found a notification. New inquiry. $750,000 mortgage, initiated in your name. His first thought was fraud, identity theft, a glitch. He logged into his credit portal, expecting clarity, but found only a vague, pending inquiry with no details. He hadn't woken Elise, hadn't wanted to alarm her, but the alert gnawed at him, a puzzle missing pieces. He'd deal with it today, call the bank, sort out. It was nothing, he told himself, a false hope he clung to. Bert drove to work, the radio's hum a backdrop to his thoughts. Cedar Hollow streets were lined with oaks, their leaves a riot of red and gold, a beauty he usually savored. Today, his mind was elsewhere, replaying Elise's recent behavior. She'd been traveling more, weekend retreats with her team, conferences in nearby cities. Her suitcase was always packed, her laptop password changed. Small shifts Bert had noticed but dismissed. "Work's intense," she'd say, her blue eyes bright but distant, and he'd nod, trusting her ambition, her drive. Now, the credit alert cast those moments in a new light, and doubt crept in, a shadow he couldn't shake. At the insurance firm, Bert's cubicle was a fortress of spreadsheets and sticky notes. His co-worker, Nora, a sharp-eyed analyst with a knack for spotting errors, noticed this distraction. "You okay, Bert?" she asked, leaning over the partition, her dark curls bouncing. Bert forced a smile, his glasses slipping down his nose. Just a weird bank thing. Probably nothing. Nora's brow furrowed, but she didn't press, instead tossing him a granola bar. "Let me know if you need a second pair of eyes. You're too quiet for your own good." Her warmth was a lifeline, and Bert tucked it away, a reminder he wasn't alone. After lunch, Bert called the bank, his voice calm despite the pulse in his ears. The representative was apologetic, but vague. The inquiry's tied to a mortgage application, Mr. Callahan. It's in your name, but we can't disclose more without a formal request. Can you confirm your address? Bert rattled off his Cedar Hollow address, his stomach sinking when the rep paused. That's not the property listed. It's a residence in Oak Ridge. Oak Ridge was 30 miles away, a wealthier town Bert had never visited. He hung up, his hands trembling, the word mortgage await. Why would his name be on a $750,000 loan for a house he didn't know? His internal monologue was a storm of logic and fear. It's a mistake. Has to be. Elise would know if someone stole my identity. Wouldn't she? He thought of her late nights, her locked laptop, the way she'd pull away from his touch, claiming fatigue. The pieces didn't fit, but they were forming a shape he dreaded. He checked their joint accounts online, expecting normalcy, but found a new withdrawal, $5,000, transferred an account he didn't recognize, authorized by Elise. His breath caught, the betrayal a possibility he couldn't ignore. Was she involved? The question was a blade, cutting through his trust. Bert drove home, the sunset bleeding red across the sky, his mind racing. He needed answers, but confrontation felt too raw, too soon. Instead, he'd dig, use his analyst skills to uncover the truth. At home, Elise was in the living room, her phone buzzing, her laugh bright as she texted. "Good day?" Bert asked, his voice even, his eyes sharp. "Great," she said, not looking up. Client loved the pitch. Her ease was a mask, and Bert saw it now, a crack in facade of their life. He retreated to his study, a small room lined with books and a creaky desk. Opening his laptop, he created a password-protected folder, Credit, and began logging details. The alert, the bank call, the withdrawal. He'd check Elise's emails, her phone, anything to confirm or dispel his fears. His heart ached, the hope that this was a misunderstanding warring with the dread of betrayal. She's my wife. She wouldn't. But the numbers didn't lie, and Bert, quiet but intelligent, was waking up as the night deepened. Bert stood by the window, the oaks outside swaying in the wind. Elise slept in their bed, unaware of his unraveling trust. The $750,000 mortgage was a shadow debt, its purpose hidden, but Bert would find it. The audience could feel his tension, the slow burn of man on the edge of truth, his scars forming but his strength stirring. The crack in his world was widening, and Bert, with careful steps, was ready to peer inside. The Cedar Hollow dawn was a pale wash of gray, the air heavy with the scent of frost and wood smoke. Bert sat in his study, the glow of his laptop casting sharp angles across his face, his glasses reflecting lines of code and bank statements. A week had passed since the credit alert. New inquiry, $750,000 mortgage, shattered his trust, hinting at a fraud tied to his name. At 36, Bert's quiet intelligence was his weapon, his data analyst's mind dissecting patterns in silence. But the emotional tension of suspecting his wife, Elise, was a storm he could barely contain. His brown eyes were shadowed, his wiry frame taut, as he chased a truth he both dreaded and needed. Bert's investigation was methodical, a lifeline in the chaos. He'd started with their joint accounts, confirming the $5,000 withdrawal Elise had authorized to an unknown account. Digging deeper, he accessed his credit report, his pulse quickening at the sight of a hard inquiry for a $750,000 mortgage, dated 10 days ago, linked to a property in Oak Ridge. The bank's refusal to share details without a formal dispute spurred him to act. Using skills honed from years of untangling insurance data, he scoured public records online, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Late at night, when Elise slept, he found it, a deed in his name for a sprawling Oak Ridge estate. Purchased 2 weeks ago, the mortgage a shadowed debt he'd never signed for. The discovery was a gut punch, his breath shallow as he stared at the screen. The house, 5 bedrooms, a pool, a gated drive, wasn't theirs. They lived in a modest ranch, their savings modest, their dreams grounded. How had his identity been used for this? His internal monologue was a whirl of logic and fear. This is fraud. Someone stole my name. But Elise, she'd know, wouldn't she? The suspicion clawed at him. Her recent behavior. Late nights, locked devices, evasive smiles, forming a pattern he couldn't ignore. Yet, a false hope flickered. Maybe she was a victim, too, caught in a scam. He clung to it, desperate to preserve the Elise he'd loved, the woman who danced with him in their kitchen, her laughter and melody he still heard. Emotional tension gripped him, the audience feeling his turmoil in his small gestures, his hand pausing over a photo of them hiking, her blonde hair glowing in the sun, the way he'd stare at Elise across the dinner table, searching her blue eyes for truth. She was warmer now, as if sensing his distance, her touches lingering, her voice soft. "You seem stressed, Bert," she said one evening, her hand on his arm. "Everything okay?" Her concern was a lifeline, and Bert's heart ached, wanted to believe her. "Just work," he lied, his voice steady, his suspicion a silent current. "Long hours." She nodded, her smile too perfect, and Bert's hope wavered, the betrayal shadow he couldn't outrun. He deepened his search, driven by a need for clarity. At the library, he accessed property records, confirming the Oak Ridge house was registered to him, the mortgage to a lender he'd never used. A name appeared in the documents, Daniel Reese, listed as a co-applicant's reference. The name was unfamiliar, but Elise's laptop, left open one night, offered a clue. Bert, heart pounding, checked her email, guilt warring with necessity. A deleted message from D.Reese read, "The place is perfect, babe. Can't wait to start our life." The word babe was a blade, slicing through his hope. Daniel wasn't a colleague. He was personal, a figure Elise hid. Bert's mind reeled, the pieces clicking into place. The mortgage, the withdrawal, Daniel's email. They pointed to Elise orchestrating a fraud, using Bert's identity to fund a life with another man. He leaned back, his study's bookshelves closing in, his breath ragged. She wouldn't. Not Elise. But the evidence was a ledger, each entry damning. He saved the email, adding it to his credit folder, now a growing archive of screenshots, records, and notes. His analyst precision kept him focused, but his heart was a battlefield, love clashing with betrayal. Nora, his co-worker, became a quiet ally. Over coffee at the office, Bert shared a sliver of truth. "Found some weird financial stuff," he said, his glasses slipping down his nose. "Might be fraud." Nora's dark eyes narrowed, her analyst's instincts sharp. "That's serious, Bert. Want me to run a trace? I know some back channels." Her offer was a spark, and Bert nodded, grateful for her discretion. "Just keep it quiet," he said, his voice low. Nora's nod was a promise, and Bert felt a flicker of strength, a reminder he wasn't alone. At home, Elise's behavior fueled his suspicion. She'd leave her phone face down, her text silenced, her client meetings stretching late. One night, Bert overheard her on a call, her voice low, laughing. "Soon, I promise." It's all falling into place. She hung up when he entered, her smile quick. "Work stuff," she said, but Bert saw the lie in her eyes, a crack in her facade. He nodded, his own mask intact, but inside he was unraveling, the false hope that she was innocent fading like mist. His internal monologue was a lament and a vow. "I loved you, Elise. How did we get here? I'll find the truth, no matter how much it hurts." He began tracking her movements, noting her absences, cross-referencing them with bank activity. A new withdrawal, $10,000, to the same mystery account, appeared, and Bert's suspicion hardened. He contacted a lawyer friend, Sam, for advice, keeping details vague. "If someone used your name for a loan, you need proof," Sam said. "Build a case, but don't tip your hand." The advice was a map, and Bert followed it, his quiet intelligence sharpening into resolve. As the week ended, Bert stood in the backyard, the oaks whispering in the wind, their leaves a carpet of red. Elise was out, her retreat, a lie he no longer believed. The $750,000 mortgage was a shadow debt, its purpose tied to Daniel, a man living in the Oak Ridge house Bert's name had bought. The betrayal was wound, but Bert's scars were forging strength. He'd keep digging, stay silent, let Elise think she won. The audience could feel his tension, the slow burn of man balancing love and loss, his hope a fragile thread against the growing truth. Bert closed his eyes, the wind cold on his face, and vowed to unravel the ledger, no matter the cost. The Cedar Hollow Library was a fortress of silence, its dim lights casting long shadows across rows of books. Bert sat at a corner table, his laptop open, a stack of printed documents beside him, his glasses fogged with the strain of late nights. 3 weeks had passed since the $750,000 mortgage alert jolted him awake, and now, at 36, Bert's quiet intelligence was a blade, slicing through the veil of his wife Elise's deception. The truth, confirmed in brutal clarity, was a devastation. Elise had forged his name to secure the mortgage, buying a lavish Oak Ridge house for her secret boyfriend, Daniel Reese. Bert's wiry frame was tense, his brown eyes burning with a mix of heartbreak and growing anger, but he played the oblivious husband, his silence a mask as he gathered evidence for a reckoning yet to come. Bert's investigation had reached a turning point. Nora, his co-worker and ally, had used her data tracing skills to pull a credit bureau file, revealing the mortgage's details. $750,000 in Bert's name, with Elise listed as a co-signer, her signature eerily mimicking his. Public records confirmed the Oak Ridge property, a modern estate with marble counters and a view, was deeded to Bert, but Daniel Reese was listed as the occupant in utility records. A photo from a real estate site, accessed late at night, sealed it. Elise and Daniel, arms around each other, standing on the house's porch, her smile brighter than Bert had seen in years. The image was a sledgehammer, shattering the last of his hope that this was a misunderstanding. His emotional turmoil was a storm, the audience feeling in his trembling hands as he saved the photo to his credit folder, now a digital vault of damning evidence. Bank statements, emails, property deeds. At home, Bert's heart ached as he watched Elise move through their ranch house, her blonde hair catching the light, her voice cheerful as she lied about client calls. How could you do this? His internal monologue screamed, replaying their decade together. Hikes in the hills, her hand in his, promises of a family. The betrayal wasn't just financial. It was a theft of their shared past, a life he believed in. "You're quiet tonight," Elise said one evening, her blue eyes searching his. Bert forced a smile, his voice steady. "Just tired." The lie was a shield, but inside, grief wore with a rising fury. The anger was new, a slow burn that replaced his initial shock. Bert felt in the clench of his jaw when Elise left for another retreat, her suitcase packed with clothes he didn't recognize. He saw in the mirror, his reflection harder, his eyes no longer soft. She'd used his name, his trust, to fund a fantasy with Daniel, a man whose emails, "Our new start, babe," mocked Bert's existence. The scale of her deceit, $750, 000. Their savings drained, their future erased, fueled a rage he channeled into planning. He wouldn't confront her yet. He needed airtight proof, a case that would expose her and protect him. Bert's evidence gathering was meticulous, his analyst's mind a machine. He accessed Elise's cloud account, using a forgotten password she once shared, and found a folder labeled Oak Ridge. It held photos of the house's interior, Daniel's furniture, Elise's artwork on the walls, and a budget spreadsheet detailing their new life, funded by the mortgage and their siphoned savings. A voicemail, downloaded from her phone while she showered, was a final nail. Daniel's voice, smooth and smug, saying, "The paperwork's solid, Elise. Bert won't know until we're gone." The words were a wound, but they sharpened Bert's resolve, his anger a fire he'd wieled carefully. He confided more in Nora, meeting her at a diner, its neon glow a contrast to his dark mood. "Elise did it," he said, his voice low, the admission raw. "She took out the mortgage for her boyfriend's house, used my name." Nora's eyes widened, her dark curls bouncing as she leaned forward. That's fraud, Bert. You need a lawyer now. Her anger on his behalf was a spark, and Bert nodded, his plan taking shape. I'm building a case, he said. I want her to think she's safe until I'm ready. Nora's nod was fierce. You're smarter than she knows. Don't let her see you coming. At home, Bert's pretense was a tightrope walk. Elise's warmth was a calculated act, her touches frequent, her laughter forced. Let's plan a getaway, she suggested one night, her smile radiant. Just us. Bert's heart twisted, a flicker of the old love. But he saw the lie, her plan to keep him placated while she and Daniel finalized their escape. Sounds nice, he said, his voice neutral, his eyes sharp. Inside, he was mapping her downfall, his anger tempered by a growing strength. You think you've won, Elise, but I'm awake now. He consulted Sam, his lawyer friend, in secret, sharing key evidence. This is identity theft, fraud, maybe more. Sam said, his tone grave. Get everything, texts, voicemails, photos. We can void the mortgage, press charges. Sam's advice was a blueprint, and Bert followed it, adding a hidden tracker to Elise's phone, noting her trips to Oak Ridge, syncing them with Daniel's emails. Each piece was a brick in his case, his quiet planning a shield against the devastation. The turning point came on a frigid evening. As Bert stood in the backyard, the oaks bare against the sky, Elise was out her meeting a lie, and Bert opened his laptop, reviewing his evidence. The mortgage, the photos, the voicemail. The betrayal was a weight, but it forged him. Smarter, stronger, scarred but unbowed. He made a decision. He'd act soon, not just to expose Elise, but to destroy her fantasy with Daniel. A dark idea flickered, a poetic revenge he'd keep hidden, its shape forming in his mind. He'd let her think she was safe, let her and Daniel dream their Oak Ridge life, then pull the rug out in a way they'd never see coming. Bert closed the laptop, his breath visible in the cold, his anger a steady flame. The audience could feel his transformation, the quiet man waking, his pain a catalyst for cunning. Elise and Daniel thought they'd outsmarted him, but Bert was no longer the trusting husband. He was a strategist, his plan a shadow dead of his own, waiting to be called due. He turned back to the house, the lights warm but hollow, and vowed to strike when the moment was right, his scars a map to a justice only he could deliver. The cedar hollow air was sharp at the bite of late November, the oaks stripped bare, their branches clawing at a steel-gray sky. Bert sat in his study, the room a cocoon of books and shadows, his laptop's glow illuminating a spreadsheet of evidence that mapped his wife Elise's betrayal. At 36, Bert's quiet intelligence had hardened into a weapon, his brown eyes behind glasses glinting with a fierce resolve. The $750,000 mortgage fraudulently taken in his name to buy an Oak Ridge mansion for Elise's boyfriend, Daniel Reese, was no longer a wound. It was a battleground. Bert's plan, a dark and poetic revenge, was in motion, his every move cloaked in silence as he prepared to dismantle their deceit. The tension was a taut wire, his strength forged in scars, his heart a furnace of calculated fury. Bert's execution was meticulous, a data analyst precision turned lethal. He'd met with Sam, his lawyer friend, in a discreet diner 2 towns over, the clatter of plates masking their talk. Bert laid out his evidence, the forged mortgage documents, Elise's emails with Daniel, the voicemail plotting their escape, and photos of them at the Oak Ridge house. This is airtight, Sam said, his eyes scanning the folder. Identity theft, fraud, conspiracy. We can void the mortgage, freeze their assets, and press charges. But you need to secure your finances first. Bert nodded, his voice low. I'm on it. I want them to feel this. Sam's nod was grim, a contract sealed. Securing his finances was Bert's first strike. He opened a new bank account, redirecting his paycheck and siphoning what remained of their joint savings. $3,200, before Elise could drain it. He changed passwords on his personal accounts, locking her out, and filed a fraud dispute with the credit bureaus, flagging the mortgage as unauthorized. The bank froze the Oak Ridge property's title, halting any sale, a move Bert kept hidden. Each step was a brick in his fortress, his quiet planning a shield against the devastation of Elise's betrayal. "You thought you could erase me," Elise, his internal monologue hissed, "but I'm rewriting the story." Gathering proof of fraud was relentless. Bert hacked deeper into Elise's cloud, finding a hidden folder with bank transfers, $20,000 more to Daniel's account, funneled through shell companies. He traced Daniel's digital footprint, using Nora's back channels to access his social media and public records. Daniel, 38, was a slick real estate agent with a trail of debts and a pending lawsuit for shady deals. His weak point was his ego. He flaunted the Oak Ridge house online, calling it my empire, oblivious of the fraud. Bert saved every post, every boast, his anger a steady pulse. Daniel's arrogance was a lever Bert would pull, a flaw to exploit in his revenge. The emotional turmoil was a constant undertow, the audience feeling it in Bert's clenched fists as he watched Elise laugh over dinner. Her lies a performance. "You're my rock, Bert," she said one night, her hand on his, her blue eyes a mask. The word stung, a reminder of the love he'd lost, but his anger burned brighter. "You don't know I'm awake," he thought, his smile tight, his pretense flawless. At night, alone, he'd stare at their hiking photo. Her smile once his world, now a taunt. The betrayal, her forging his name, building a life with Daniel. Cut deep, but it fueled him, his scars a map to strength. Nora's support was a lifeline. At the office, she slipped him a USB drive with Daniel's financial history, her dark curls framing a fierce grin. "This guy's a mess," she said. "Over-leveraged, cocky. You've got him." Bert's gratitude was a quiet nod, his trust in her growing. "I'm planning something," he confided, his voice low. "It's big." Nora's eyes gleamed. "Make it hurt, Bert. For you." Her face sharpened his resolve, a reminder that his quiet nature hit a storm. Bert's digging revealed Daniel's vulnerabilities. A gambling habit, a second mortgage on another property, and a reputation teetering on his Oak Ridge success. Bert crafted a plan to exploit these, a revenge both legal and poetic. He contacted a reporter, Lena, from a local paper, sending anonymous tips about Daniel's shady deals, linking them to the Oak Ridge house. Lena's reply was eager. "This smells like a story. Keep feeding me." Bert also prepared a dossier for the police, detailing Elise's fraud, ready to deliver when the moment struck. His plan wasn't just to expose them. It was to unravel their dream, piece by piece, in a way they'd never see coming. The tension built, a slow crescendo the audience could feel. Elise's behavior grew bolder, her retreats frequent, her phone buzzing with texts she hid. Bert tracked her to Oak Ridge twice, the GPS on her phone a silent ally, confirming her visits to Daniel. She was planning to leave, her suitcase half-packed, her lies thinner. "Big project wrapping up," she told Bert, her smile strained. He nodded, his eyes sharp, his heart a furnace. "You're running out of time. Elise." At home, Bert's pretense was a masterclass. He cooked dinner, laughed at her stories, all while his mind churned. His study was his war room, the credit folder now a tome of evidence. He practiced his confrontation, his voice low, imagining Elise's shock, Daniel's panic. The revenge was forming, a public unraveling, time for maximum impact. He'd learned Daniel was hosting a real estate gala at the Oak Ridge house, a showcase for investors, and Bert saw his stage. He'd strike there, exposing the fraud, shattering their empire before it began. The turning point came on a stormy evening, as Bert stood in the backyard, rain soaking his flannel shirt. His laptop was open, the dossier complete, Lena's article drafted, the police primed. He'd secured his finances, his evidence ironclad, his plan a shadow dead his own. The gala was days away, and Bert decided he'd confront Elise and Daniel there, in front of their guests, with proof that would ruin them. It would be quiet, precise, a blade slipped between ribs, its pain lingering long after. Bert closed the laptop, the rain cold on his face, his anger a steady flame. The audience could sense the intensity. The quiet man transformed into a strategist, his scars fueling a dark justice. Elise and Daniel thought they'd buried him. But Bert was rising. His plan a trap they'd walk into blindly. He turned to the house, Elise's silhouette in the window, and whispered, "You'll see me soon." The confrontation was set, the gala stage for revenge so poetic, so painful, it would echo through their lives, a debt they'd never repay. The Oak Ridge estate glowed under a November moon, its marble facade a beacon for Cedar Hollow's elite. Inside, Daniel Reese's real estate gala buzzed with clinking glasses and polished laughter, investors mingling in a chandelier-lit ballroom. Bert stood at the edge of the crowd, his wiry frame sharp in a borrowed suit, his brown eyes behind glasses gleaming with quiet fury. At 36, his intelligence had forged a weapon from his scars. The $750,000 mortgage fraudulently taken in his name by his wife, Elise, to buy this house for her boyfriend, Daniel. Now the stage for his revenge. The betrayal, 10 years of love, trust, and dreams, had broken him. But tonight, Bert would break them. His plan a dark, poetic justice that would burn long after the lights dimmed. The past month had been a masterclass in restraint. Bert had secured his finances, locked Elise out his accounts, and built an ironclad case with Sam, his lawyer, and Nora, his co-worker ally. Lena, the reporter, had her expose ready. Time to drop after Bert's strike. The dossier, mortgage documents, Elise's emails, Daniel's voicemail, photos of their Oak Ridge life, was with the police, prime for charges. Bert had tracked Daniel's weaknesses, his gambling debts, his shaky deals, and woven them into a trap. The gala, Daniel's crowning moment, was Bert's chosen battlefield, a public stage where their empire would crumble. Bert moved through the crowd, unnoticed, his quiet demeanor a cloak. Elise was radiant in a sapphire dress, her blonde hair swept up, her laughter a siren's call as she charmed investors. Daniel, slick in a tailored suit, toasted the room, his voice booming about new horizons. Bert's heart twisted, the love he'd once felt for Elise now ash, his anger a steady flame. "You thought you could erase me," his internal monologue seethed. "But I'm the one holding the pen." He caught Nora's eye across the room, her dark curls a beacon, her nod a signal. Everything was set. The confrontation began with a whisper. Bert had hacked the gala's AV system, a skill honed in late-night coding sessions. As Daniel raised a glass, the projector flickered and the room's chatter died. A photo filled the screen. Elise and Daniel on the Oak Ridge porch, her arms around him, captioned with their email, "Our new start, babe." Gasps rippled through the crowd, investors frowning. Daniel froze, his glass trembling, while Elise's smile vanished, her blue eyes darting to the booth. The screen shifted, mortgage documents in Bert's name, Elise's forged signature, bank transfers to Daniel's accounts, his voicemail. "Bert won't know until we're gone." Bert stepped forward, his voice cutting through the silence, calm but razor sharp. "This house," he said, addressing the room, "was bought with a $750,000 mortgage in my name, forged by my wife, Elise, for her boyfriend, Daniel Reese. They stole my identity, my savings, my trust, to build this lie." The audience was a sea of shocked faces, phones out, recording. Elise's hand flew to her mouth, her face ashen, while Daniel lunged toward the projector, shouting, "Turn it off!" But Nora at the controls locked it, the truth looping. Bert held up a USB drive, his eyes locked on Elise. "This is everything. Your emails, your plans, your theft. The police have it. The bank's frozen your accounts. Lena Hart's article drops tomorrow, exposing your fraud." He turned to Daniel, his voice low, venomous. "You gamble with my life. Daniel, now you're broke." The poetic justice was exquisite. Daniel's empire, built on lies, collapsed before his investors, his debts called due. Elise's charm, her ambition, was dust, her betrayal a public scar. Elise stumbled toward him, tears streaming. "Bert, I didn't mean," he cut her off, his voice steady. "You meant every choice, Elise." You and Daniel built this house, but I'm burning it down. The crowd parted, investors whispering, some slipping out, their trust in Daniel shattered. Lena, in the back, scribbled furiously, her article already trending. The police, tipped by Sam, waited outside, ready to arrest. Bert's revenge was a shadow debt, its payment exacted in their ruin. Daniel's career obliterated. Elise's freedom in jeopardy, their Oak Ridge dream of prison. The emotional weight was crushing, the audience feeling Bert's triumph laced with pain. He'd loved Elise, believed in their future, and her betrayal, forging his name, choosing Daniel, had scarred him. But those scars had forged strength, his quiet nature now a force. He'd exposed them not with rage, but with precision, a poet's touch that left them bleeding. Elise's sobs, Daniel's panic, were a hollow victory. The cause of his trust a wound that would linger. Bert walked out, the night air cold, the estate's glow fading behind him. Nora caught up, her voice soft. "You did it, Bert. You okay?" He nodded, his glasses fogging. "I will be." Sam texted. Charges filed. Mortgage voided. "You're clear." The legal victory was his, but the true win was internal. Bert had grown smarter, stronger, his scars a map of resilience. He'd lost at least their dreams, but gained himself, a man who could face betrayal and rise. His new life began quietly. Bert moved to a small apartment, its bare walls a canvas for his future. He kept his job, his spreadsheet a comfort, but added teaching coding classes at the community center, his patients inspiring students. Nora became a close friend. Their coffee talked a ritual. He started hiking again, the hills a space to heal, his journal now filled with plans, not pain. The Oak Ridge house was sold, the proceeds tied up in legal battles. But Bert didn't care. He was free. On a crisp morning, Bert stood on a hill overlooking Cedar Hollow, the oaks a tapestry of winter gray. He thought of Elise, now facing trial, and Daniel, his reputation dust. His revenge had been poetic, a public dismantling that echoed their private theft, its pain a mirror to his own. But Bert's pride wasn't in their fall. It was in his rise, a quiet man who'd rewritten his story. "You took everything, Elise, but I built more," his internal monologue vowed, the words a lantern in the dark. He walked down the hill, the town waking below, his steps steady, his heart scarred but whole. The audience was left with his strength, a dark triumph that lingered, a man who'd face a trail and emerged not broken, but proud. Bert's new life was his own, controlled, deliberate, a testament to the power of quiet resilience, a shadow debt repaid with the light of his own making.